Good morning. I'm Shannon Gibson, and I'm the Dean of the David B. O'Malley College of Business. Thank you for joining us on this Friday of our Business of Flight Week. We have had a wonderful assortment of speakers and guests throughout the week, and now we get to conclude the week on another high point. Today, we welcome two individuals and have an interview planned with first our guest, if you will, our guest of honor is Mr. Brad Thress. Brad is president and CEO of FlightSafety International, where he's been since 2020. Prior to that, he had a rich history of time with Textron Aviation. He's held multiple engineering and other sorts of operation positions during that time, which will become evident as he works through our interview questions. And prior to that, Brad was a pilot with the U.S. Air Force. Helping me in the interview process today is Mr. Roger Smeltzer. Many of you know Roger because he is a member of the O'Malley College of Business Leadership Board and one of our cadre of executives and residents. Roger is also a veteran of Textron Aviation, but before that he was with Beechcraft and also with Hawker working with NetJets. Welcome both gentlemen. We're thrilled to have you here. And I know that you're going to have, we know you're going to have lots of great information to share with our students. And that's what we're all about. So I'm going to get us started. Brad, I'm a huge believer that leadership comes from the culmination of diverse experiences, frequently in diverse companies with diverse types of people, where you're challenged to do things and grow as a person. I also believe that great leaders look for a mix of talent and tenacity in their team and try to cultivate it. I would like for you to go back a little bit and talk to us about your first foray into leadership and what were the unique challenges you experienced and what were the biggest things you learned and took away from that?
Well, first of all, I agree with you about the diverse background and a diverse body of experience making good leaders. So first, let me say that. Boy, if I go back to my very first one, I'd probably say like real professional leadership. My very first one was as an instructor, a new instructor pilot in the Air Force. I was what the Navy calls a plowback and what the Air Force we called first assignment instructor pilot. So right after you complete pilot training, they make you an instructor. So here you are, you're probably 23-year-old first lieutenant, and you go through the instructor training, and then you come back and they give you these 4 kids that were basically where you were, 18 months ago, and you're entrusted to get these guys through the program. So that was probably my first real professional leadership assignment. I think the challenges with that one were just the diversity of these guys, and the way they learned and dealing with it and trying to make sure they were successful. But I'd say the takeaway there was having walked a mile in those moccasins shortly before, it was a very easy process, and it was very easy to connect with them and understand where they were going to be challenged, and really understand what they were facing into in detail.
That's great. That's not all that different from our students who are about to graduate and go out and take on positions, many of them in the military. So it's a great example for what they can expect coming next.
Yeah.
I know this may not be a fair question, but you served in multiple leadership positions while at Textron Aviation. Which was your favorite and why?
Yeah. So I served in, I joked with everybody, I had every job on the senior leadership team except HR. So I was very, very lucky to get to do a wide variety of different things at then Cessna. And then when we bought Beechcraft, we became Textron Aviation. Boy, favorite one. They all have their own rewards and challenges. But I'd say if I had to pick a favorite, I would say the customer service role, which includes all the service centers and the parts distribution and logistics business. I think it's particularly rewarding to me because it was kind of a standalone business. So you had your own P&L essentially. It wasn't just a cost center like engineering or manufacturing. So that was really, really good because you get a really good business education. But you also face into a lot of customer issues, and those can be tricky to deal with. A lot of times you have kind of unhappy customer on the phone almost daily. Roger knows that; he can relate to that.
Yes.
So learning to deal with those folks and simultaneously running a business was very, very rewarding. The other thing I think was rewarding about it was we had facilities all around the world, and so you get to manage kind of globally. So it was a very, very neat role.
Sounds like there were lots of challenges, but I appreciate that you acknowledge that each one had its good and its bad, the growth areas and the opportunities and the struggles. How were they complementary in terms of your growth as a leader?
Oh yeah, so I would say that every single role you have, whether it's a leadership role or just a individual performer role, will serve you in the future. The lessons you learn and the things you learn will always serve you in the future. So I think they were all very complementary. And it's so like when you run engineering, you learn a whole different language and set of challenges with regulators and with the laws of physics, if you will. Then you learn in customer service, and in the manufacturing world, you learn a whole other set of procedures and challenges and metallurgies and, you know, manufacturing processes and everything. And so in the end, you have this huge diverse background and body of knowledge that is just very, very beneficial. And woven through all those, I would say, are interpersonal relationship lessons and leadership lessons that just continue to build, and you just continue to add arrows to your quiver over your career, or tools to your toolbox, however you want to say it. And all of that's I find very rewarding.
What I love hearing you say, because it echoes what we've been hearing throughout the week from many people, is you have to say yes to these opportunities, even when they're really different.
Oh, yes. And I tell my kids that. I tell everyone I can think of that. So if you are in a role, the best thing you can do is focus on that role and doing that role as the best you can. And so if you are the go-to person, in air quotes, and you're a person that people can always come, whether they're your boss or whether they're just peers or people from other functional areas of the company, they can come to you with things and they know you'll take care of it and get it done. Pretty soon a door is going to open, and you need to go through it. I mean, don't go through stupid ones, but most of them are usually opportunities. And learn the new role just as with all the enthusiasm that you executed the previous one with, and you will build a unrepeatable resume and body of experience that makes you uniquely qualified for something in the future.
And then you look back one day and you've built a career, which is amazing.
Yeah, it just happens. All of a sudden you look back and you're like, how the heck did that happen? Yeah, it's interesting. It's fun.
And so now you're president and CEO of FlightSafety, and that brings together everything you've described so far. I'm going to ask you to pivot a little bit and talk to us about how safety is truly everyone's job, but also how it's an essential part of the business of aviation and aerospace.
Yeah, let me start with the latter part first, because I think that the focus on safety and the collective benefit of that focus has gotten us to where we are today, where it's safer to get in an airline and go across the country than it is drive to the convenience store. I mean, just think about that. That's remarkable. And it's not just the certification standards and the reliability of the airplane, it's the collective system that makes that happen. It's the air traffic controllers, it's the airplane, it's the training of the crews, it's the ground handling folks, it's the maintenance technicians. And so pulling that whole industry together to make it as safe as it is today is remarkable. And so I think that is the evidence of what you're talking about over a 50-year period of continuous improvement. We're just making the system and the processes safer and safer. So that said, I think that it's kind of the ocean we swim in. Specific to flight safety, though, Our focus is primarily on delivering simulator training and what we call level D full flight sims. And there's really no equivalent to that, and it's become required around the globe. And the realism and the density, what I call the density of training events and circumstances you can experience in that sim and do it safely, is just unheralded. So, that's what we focus on. There's other people that focus on that too as well. We have competitors. So what we try to do, instead of just checking the regulatory boxes and delivering, the required training, is really try to go above and beyond that and deliver a tailored set of experiences in the simulator for our clients that really address their operation. And we also have a partnership with GE Data where we take amalgamated FOQA information, and we actually find scenarios around the world that are kind of common for business aviators. That's primarily what we do. And we actually teach what's really actually, hurting people. And we're really proud of that distinguishing factor where we mix in a lot of evidence-based training, and we can also take a client's personal FOQA data and concentrate on the issues that they're having or the areas that they want to work on based on the evidence of how they fly the airplane, the real airplane.
Big data at its best.
Yeah, it is big. GE has 50,000 years of flight data we pull out of, collective 50,000 years.
Roger, you have some questions?
I do. And Brad, thanks again for joining us today. This is really an awesome experience. I want to focus a bit more on the operational aspects of flight safety, since I was previously with NetJets, Beechcraft, and Textron. After a long career at Cessna and Textron Aviation, you joined FlightSafety. What do you feel was the major difference in leading an aircraft OEM versus a training organization?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So flight safety is kind of, people I think view us based on when you see our learning centers, but we're really very vertically integrated. So I guess I'd say, back to the question of lessons that, benefit and experience that benefit. We have a big manufacturing operation. We manufacture all of our simulators. Year before last, we acquired Frasca, and they have a large manufacturing facility as well. So we have a big manufacturing enterprise that I get to oversee. We also engineer our own visual databases, and we engineer our simulators. We engineer the projection systems that make all the visuals work. So we have a large engineering group. So my experience in engineering is helpful there as well. But I think the biggest difference, to answer your question finally, is that the focus of the OEM is delivering a product of quality and capability. And our focus is really the human-to-human experience of the training delivery in the sim. So we measure, like everyone, we measure the quality of our product or our service with surveys. And I think what drives a great customer experience, it really, in the end, is a great human relationship between the instructor and the client. And I'd say that's the primary difference, is rather than, we got to have a quality simulator, but we're much more human service interaction driven than an OEM.
Okay. It's very understandable. It's a really unique experience that you have in that regards, putting out a human experience versus a material
Right.
from the airframe side.
Yeah, right. And I'd say the culture of customer service at FlightSafety, I was a client for 30 years before I took the job. So I always felt that the culture and the focus on customer service was very strong, and we've just tried to continue that and grow it.
Yes. And having been through a few of your maintenance training courses, I can see that byproduct as well.
Yeah, it's important.
Mhm. Do you see any differences in training a pilot or a maintenance technician from the business aviation, the military or commercial aviation, or even the fractional ownership with their expectations or qualifications?
Oh, certainly. So I would say, though, to begin with, the core of what we deliver is very, very similar. So from normal ops to abnormal ops, uh, we do a kind of a similar core of flight training, if you will. And because modern airplanes all operate in similar manners, a lot of those malfunctions are the same from airframe to airframe, but the procedures associated with them are different and nuanced.
Yeah.
So the core is very similar, but I would say the way you lace it together is quite different. So the military, I would say, is much more mission oriented than just pilot qualification oriented. So they want to first train the operator to be familiar and operate the airplane safely, but then beyond that, they have a much more extensive syllabus that focuses on the mission capabilities of the airplane, whether that be air refueling or, combat rescue helicopter. They actually simulate missions in the helicopter, so that's the difference with the military guys, is they're much more focused. They take the safe operations of the airplane as table stakes, and then they focus on really executing the mission much more than they do basic flying skills. On the commercial side, a little bit different animal for us. The commercial guys tend to want to do their own training, plus they're Part 121 operators, so regulatorily they need to use their check airmen and things like that. So basically, for the commercial guys, we provide the simulator on an hourly basis, and then typically they do their own instruction with their team members. So that's very different for us as far as a business proposition. And then the fractionals are interesting because, and the charter operators are different in a couple ways. One of our biggest customers, NetJets, actually has AQP, advanced qualification training. And so they do, instead of twice a year recurrent, they come once every 8 months, and the content of every 8 months evolves and changes, and they can customize it, as I mentioned earlier, to the pilot's performance in the airplane based on the FOQA data from the airplanes. So it's just a little more tailored and a little more different, syllabus, but the core of it is the same. Maintenance training is a whole other thing. Maintenance training is a combination of classroom training and actually doing work on airplanes and engines, et cetera. So I would say that's a whole other kind of body of work, but we really enjoy it, and it's really important.
Yeah, so that would be based on the use of the aircraft compared to Part 135 or Part 91, and then whatever the OEM prescribes as the maintenance qualifications per the airframe.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing I would say is that a US A&P doesn't require a type rating, but in EASA, they do require a type rating, a B1 or a B2, depending on if it's mechanical or avionics. And so they have to have practical experience on the specific type. So they can't just learn theory. They have to have hands-on experience on, a Pratt Whitney 306 and, a Citation Sovereign or whatever model they're getting their type rating in.
Okay, very good. Well, that's really interesting. So as a major provider of pilot and maintenance training, we really tend to focus on safety and reoccurrent training as one of our strongest benchmarks in our industry. What is the biggest challenge you face today, and what is the key to your success?
So I think the biggest challenge we have, anyone in this business has, is the vast regulatory environment that you're talking about. So we have accumulated in our 72 years about 180 airworthiness authority approvals for different programs across the envelope of what we teach. And so each of those has different set of requirements. And so our our biggest challenge on a kind of day-to-day basis is making sure that when someone comes from Uruguay to get, whatever versus another client coming from Canada, that we make sure we make them regulatorily safe and check all the boxes. But I think the real challenge for us is to stay away from a routine that is the same syllabus that client flew exactly the same 6 months ago. So creating a unique, tailored experience that challenges and teaches the client something new when they've been flying that airplane for 10 years is it's kind of fun on one hand, but it can force our guys to kind of think out of the box and be a little creative. And as aviators and mechanical people, that's not always our go-to personality.
Mhm. Absolutely. So you would really qualify it as an educational experience as well. So you have
completely.
you have
Yeah,
people
that's our business. Yeah.
Yeah, you have people in
And
the
so
background.
just like anything, we have, like an academic section of our training, and then we have a hands-on section of our training when we're going to learn it. And it is definitely education.
Yeah, I think many people probably don't realize how many people are in the background that are just doing research and trying to prepare to educate people through the use of the syllabuses and keeping the sims updated and things like that.
Yeah, so we have a large body of folks that do courseware.
Mhm.
And you think of courseware as like a PowerPoint slide and a book, but it's gone well beyond that nowadays, right? It's online ground school, which is, an interface that has to be certified and can be very complex. We do what we call live learning, where we have a classroom of live people, but we're also video linked to people that are attending virtually. And all of that has to be certified as well. So it's a complicated world. We're doing a ton with virtual now.
Yes.
Virtual training is emerging as something people like, especially for ground ops and cockpit familiarization, maintenance task. We actually get EASA credit for practical training for a couple of engine procedures that we do, bore scopes and other small tasks. So it's an extensive thing.
Mhm. So where do you see training going in the next 10 years?
So I think that I see what I call evolution versus revolution. I don't think that, next year anyone's going to be training in a set of VR goggles and then going and flying the airplane. I think it's going to evolve over time to utilize more technology, and you'll see enhancements in every aspect of it. One example is we're on a multi-year journey now to change completely the database, the image generation machine, and the visual projection system that we use to create a much more realistic visual system. It's kind of a large multi-year investment, but it will result in a visual set of visual imagery that's unbelievably realistic. And so that will be one path of evolution. I think we'll continue to grow the virtual space with respect to getting small bits of credit for virtual, but nothing's like the full flight sim and the reality that you get in there. So I think it'll continue to evolve and improve. But I think that the basic full flight simulation being the core of pilot preparation will not change. In fact, I think that more and more operators that currently train in the aircraft will migrate to full flight simulator training in the future, because the regulators will require it, and the insurers will require it. And people will realize, as we continue to focus on improving safety, that that's what's required.
Mhm. Well, how about drone training or training pilotless airplanes?
Yeah,
Future.
that we're involved in that in the early days of it. I would say it's very early days for it. but we're working with probably 25 of the different eVTOL manufacturers and unmanned, aspirational unmanned people. So it will be interesting to see that transition. And we have a 30-year roadmap that shows that we have to be involved in that. Right now, it's not a great business for us, but it's something we feel obligated to get into in the early days so that we can mature with the business as it grows. I never think it's a good idea to wait till a business is mature and then knock at the door and try to get in. Very, very bad strategy. So we're going to mature with it. We're going to take our licks along the way and engage with these people. You hope you pick the ones that'll be successful. But you got to pick a few horses to ride. So that's our strategy in the space. You make a really good point about the evolution toward autonomous operations. So I think initially, I think everyone's accepted in the industry that those machines will be manned, and they will have what those companies call simplified vehicle operations. So it'll be a largely automated machine, but it'll still require a human to give it direction for a while. So I think we'll see a phase where you have manned operations of these, and then you'll have increased autonomous operations as we go forward. I think that people don't consider sometimes that it's not just the machine that has to get to the end and become safe to operate autonomously, which is its own challenge. But the airspace has to mature. The people's sentiment toward getting in a machine that doesn't have anyone flying it has to mature and become something that people will accept. So there's a long way to go with getting there, and it's going to be a longer journey, I think, than some feel. But it's important to be part of it and evolve with it and grow with it.
Good. Well, thank you, Shannon. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. I have certain questions that the students always want answers. So if they were here in person, they would ask you these questions. So the first is kind of a two-part question, and that is, one, what was the most valuable thing you learned while you were in college? And then the converse is, what is something you wish you'd learned in college, but were not taught or didn't pay attention to? It can go either way.
Yeah. Okay. So, wow. Okay. So I think that basically in college, what I learned was how to learn, maybe. I think that that's a really important thing. And if you can develop the tools that get you through college, you're going to use those same tools to get you through pilot training, to get you through maybe your MBA or a master's degree, whatever you choose. And more importantly, how to focus and learn, because I think, especially in today's world, being a lifelong learner is essential for your personal life and for your professional life.
And what you didn't listen to or don't remember or didn't learn?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess focusing the task at hand can be challenging when you're a young person. So that aside, I would say that I was an engineering major. So I probably wish I'd had bandwidth in my program to take some non-math classes, so to speak, maybe some humanities and some other things, because I'm also fascinated by those things in life. So that would be how I'd take that one.
So pursue your interest, even if they're not aligned with your degree, when you can find the time.
That's a better way to say it. Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, is there other advice you would give your younger self if you could go back and do so?
Oh boy. Yeah, honestly, I'd probably encourage myself to cut myself some slack. I guess I grew up with high expectations of myself for some reason, a little critical. So I'd probably say, hey, cut yourself some slack.
That's great. And the students here are really serious. And we tell them all the time, this is one moment in one day of a lifetime that you're building.
Right.
Nothing that happens today is the end all be all. So
yeah,
appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
So this question here, I've been asking of people for about 3 years, and it's changing each time because things are changing. But our students are graduating into a very dynamic environment. There's the turbulent nature of world politics. There's been the pandemic and recovery from pandemic. There are so many things beyond their control. What can they do to position themselves for success?
Oh boy. So this is a kind of a funny story. When I was a young second lieutenant in the Air Force, you're always getting these kind of leadership speeches and advice things, and they'll fill a theater full of, second lieutenants, and some inspirational guy will come and talk for an hour. But one of these guys came up and said, look, no matter what job you get, if they make you the snack bar officer in the squadron, just be the best snack bar officer you can and focus on that. And an opportunity will present itself. And I thought, that is the worst advice. Like, what about the long-term aspirational blah, blah, blah? And actually it's turned out to be the best advice I ever got. And so I just think you can control what you can control. And what you can control is, keeping your personal life in order and just doing the best job you can career-wise every day when you go to work. And if you can pick a swim lane, a profession or a job that you really enjoy and you're passionate about, it'll just be the recipe for a virtual flywheel that'll continue to progress you through the future.
I love how there's always so many aviation and aerospace words that come into just your normal conversation of how you describe what's going to happen. It's great.
Yeah.
So the one disadvantage to not having you here in real time is that the students love a chance to try to get to know our people a little bit more on a personal level. So they've put together some questions, and I hope you'll be willing to answer them. So the first one is, if you could have any talent or skill that you don't have, what would it be and why?
So kind of said it earlier, I think a little bit, but I score really low on empathy and emotional IQ. So I'd probably like to have a little more of that than I do. That would be my skill that I would like.
Those are good for family life, work life. That's a great one.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite pastime or hobby when you're not too type A working all the time?
Yeah. So so my wife and I really enjoy traveling and getting new experiences, especially in foreign countries and cultures. So I'd probably say that's my number one.
I love that.
I love hunting and fishing, and I'm blessed to have some really good buddies that we do a lot of cool things on that front too. So I have a lot, but that'd probably be my number one is travel.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any person, past or present, who would it be and why?
This, I think, is one of the most difficult questions that frequently get asked to people, because it's unbounded. It's completely unbounded. I mean, you could go back and speak with, Charlemagne or something, but I'm not that, I guess, deeply tied into it. So I think that mine would probably be Thomas Jefferson. I always liked reading what he wrote. And I think his vision for democracy and for the legal system that goes behind it is just completely fascinating to me. So I guess I picked Thomas Jefferson, but there's a long list.
I love this. It's the true Renaissance perspective, from hunting and fishing to Jefferson and the founding. It's great.
Yeah.
So do you or you and your family have a favorite charity? And if so, what is it that inspires you there?
So I have a long history working with United Way, and I just think it's a great way to do broad community giving. They have a very good set of criteria for qualifying who their dollars go to. And I think they address a breadth of community-based opportunities to help people in many, many challenges.
Right. I've never had anyone name a charity that made me think, oh, that's a terrible charity. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of good things out there, but it helps people find
yeah,
new
for sure.
ones.
Yeah.
All right. And so this is our last question, and it gives you just kind of that last little bit to push back to students. And it
Okay.
is, what do you think are the most important attributes of effective leaders?
So this is really a universal question, I guess. I guess if I boil it down to what I've seen that's a common theme in all leaders that I've admired, I'd say it's a bias toward action and timely decision making. I think that nothing is worse for an organization or a team than wallowing in indecision. So build a consensus, listen to your team, build a consensus, and I would say once you get 80% there, say, let's go. We'll figure the last out as we go. So that's my takeaway. I think that you can see the lack of that and the effect it has on teams when you observe it. And so I've always been a big fan of, timely decisions and dealing with things in the moment. Even if they're bad news, I tell people, something rotten doesn't get less smelly with time. You just got to deal with it.
It's great advice, and it's hard. And it goes back to that core question of the degree to which all of us are comfortable with ambiguity and the risk associated with things.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that. I'm an 80% decision today versus a 90% decision 6 weeks from now, every
Amen.
time. So,
Yeah.
Brad, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. You've had amazing answers for our students, and
Oh,
I
you're
love
kind to say that.
You've covered the breadth for my students who are interested in business, engineering, maintenance, flying. Yeah, you had something for everybody, and I appreciate that.
Sure. Well, thanks for
Roger,
having me. A really, really pleasure talking to you both.
Yes.
you too, Roger. It's always great to have you with us.
You're welcome. Thank you, Brad. Great to work
All
with
right,
you.
everyone. Yeah. Yeah. Good to work with you again.
Thank you.
All right.
Everyone, this is our last event for the Business of Flight Week. If you haven't had a chance, this is also our first ever annual week of giving. I encourage you to help us support our students through that. And if you were sitting here, I'd say let's give a warm thank you and round of applause for Brad and Roger. Everyone have a great day. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shannon.